hey, everything's going to be okay. All right. The long promised and long awaited. This video is tips for the mid gamer. Why do I keep dying? Okay. So let's talk about how damage works. So we're just going to lay down the very basics, right? Before we get into how defense works, let's talk about what is happening when you take damage. There is a monster. It is hitting you with something. You have an amount of health amount of damage you can take, and then the amount of damage that is being given, right? The amount of damage that's being given is broken up into 5 damage types. So there's physical damage, cold damage, fire damage, lightning damage, and chaos damage. Right? So these mean and do different things. But basically, these damage types combine into the total amount of damage that you're going to take. Now, listen, there's modifiers that double and triple and halve and quadruple and all these things. But if you understand the basics of how damage works, then when you look at the tree for all of the different modifiers that help with things, it'll make sense. So I want to break down what happens in the process of you not taking damage, right? So we're going to start with a example of physical damage, right? So the monster is hitting you for this physical damage. Let's say it's 1,000 points broken up evenly amongst the 5 types. You're never going to get a hit like this, but just so we can explain it, we'll do that. So the first layer of defense that you have is evasion. And evasion is affected by dexterity. And basically the calculation is what is your evasion and what is the monster's accuracy. And with this equation will give you a % chance to evade it, right? And so if you win that roll, so it's going to roll that with that % chance, and if you win that roll, you will take no damage. The hit, it won't land, right? Now, this only applies to hits. This doesn't apply to damage over time. We'll talk about damage over time later. We'll talk about spell damage later. So physical damage is a hit that is doing physical damage. Evasion, we'll skip it. You won't. Evasion deals with hits, sorry. That aren't spells. So this, you have a chance to miss it entirely and take no damage. So if that fails, then we continue through. So the next thing that you're going to hit is your armor. Now, armor is affected by your strength stat. And basically, more armor means more physical damage reduction. Remember, this number is the physical damage. So what's going to happen is this 200 is going to become 100 because you have 50% armor reduction. Now, it doesn't super work exactly like that. Like, the bigger the hit, the less reduction that you get. So armor is best for hits that are smaller than your armor pool. But to keep it simple, armor makes this number smaller in general. So now you're, instead of the 1,000 that you were about to take, you're only going to take 900 because you have less of the armor. The next thing that happens is your elemental resistances. So after those are calculated, you hit your elemental resistances. This is why everything you've ever seen is like, it's so important to be res capped, right? You've gone through a big chunk of damage mitigation and you're only lost 100 H points. If you're res capped, and this is not even chaos res capped, you half it. Now that 900 went to 450 just by simply being res capped. That's why it's so important. That's why it's talked about the most. This Elemental resistances are your best friend. That gets rid of most of the damage. You're fighting for peanuts other than that, but the biggest chunk of damage save you're going to get is from your elemental resistances. So then your damage turns into this 450. At this point, when you get past your elemental resistances, the damage is calculated, and now you have some on your body defenses that are like, okay, so there are some layers that are that you can defend against that help with the damage that's about to happen. So after the damage is converted and calculated based off all these other things, you have a chance to block it, which could be 0. That depends on your block chance. There's tons of things that update and change that. Again, depending on your build, you can invest in this to get more chances of miss it. If you don't block it and you have ward, which isn't easy to come by. You have to like specifically spec into it or build for it. But ward is basically an on-off like hand to a certain amount of damage. So let's say you have 200 ward. If your ward is on, then it's going to eat some of the damage. As soon as ward is used, it's broken. And it's broken for a certain amount of time. So then all the hits that are coming until ward is back on, you're not getting that 200 reduce. And then as soon as it's turned back on, you get it back again. And then it'll take the next hit and be broken. Right? And so assuming that it's on, again, this is all best case scenario. You won your rolls. There's no modifiers that bypass things. You're about to take 250 damage, 200 of which is chaos. This is important for a reason. These purple lines are chaos damage, does not care about your energy shield, right? So this 250 is going to try to hit you, and your energy shield is going to take the damage first. So this 250 is going to hit your energy shield and get reduced by however much energy shield you have. Now, you would think that it's going to get reduced to 50 because you have 200 energy shield, but chaos damage does not care about your energy shield. It can walk right through it and then hit you. So that's how we end up with 200 damage being taken here. Now, that's for physical damage. That's for a physical hit. Now, a spell works differently. A spell does not care about evasion and armor. It bypasses it. So your first line of defense is your resistances. Again, why they're so important. It's the only damage mitigation that will protect you against any kind of anything. You'll see when we get to dot damage how much worse it gets. So after you go through your resistances, which knock it down, again, a huge chunk, if you have spell suppression, it's another roll that works kind of like evasion. So spell suppression says, hey, you have a certain % chance to suppress the spell. And that % chance, if you win, you can get 50% of the spell damage instead of 100%. Now, you can make that 50 higher. You can make that chance higher. It all depends. But again, those min-maxings are easier to understand and like work on if you understand the basics of it. But basically, I have a % chance to have my damage incoming. So this 650 turns to 325, 200 of which is chaos. I'm keeping this in your head because chaos damage is odd. And another important thing is if you have negative chaos resistance, that makes the chaos damage more. So a lot of us, if you haven't done any chaos resistance and you're in maps, you have negative 60% chaos resistance, like me. And that means that 200 becomes 320 because I'm susceptible to chaos damage. So You want to try to get to 0%, so you're just taking the normal chaos damage, or 75% if you can get it. So you have this 325, 200 of which is chaos damage. Now there is a one very specific node you can take called acrobatics, which chance to suppress spell damage applies to chance to dodge spell hits, and spell dodge gets rid of it entirely. So think if spell suppression makes you take 50%, spell dodge makes you take 0. And so you can get spell dodge and miss them in its entirety. And again, this is my 600 hours, a little bit of studying take on a lot of these things. If I have something wrong, please correct me in the comments. The order of how the damage is calculated is complex. And so then after that, you're back to your physical body damage. So the damage is coming. You have the 325 that ward might be able to stop. And if it's on or off, and then your energy shield will take the damage first, and then the chaos damage will bypass it, and then it will hit you. Now the last version is dot damage, which happens a lot. Nothing, it's not, this is not entirely true, but this is the way to think about it. Elemental resistances are the only thing that help you with dot damage. Dot damage doesn't count for armor. You can't evade dot damage. You, there's tiny things like bleed is an initial hit that continues to do dot damage. Armor will stop the damage from the initial hit. It will not stop the damage over time. So if you're taking dot damage per second, then your elemental resistances are the only thing protecting you from that ailment dot damage that's doing that. And then it's just your on-body defenses. Ward does not break or take dot damage, so it's just your energy shield and then whatever HP pool that you have. So one of the things that you need to think about is the idea of damage reduction and like staying alive is, how do I make this number bigger and how do I make this number smaller, right? So all of this is about how to make this number smaller. And then what you can do to make this number bigger is increase your energy shield, increase your health, and then take nodes that convert damage into beneficial things for you. So if like Righteous Fire takes advantage of this because you're basically immune to fire damage when you're playing Righteous Fire. So anything you can do to convert damage into fire damage is helpful for you, because then your resistances take care of it. Since you are not stacking a lot into other types of physical mitigation, you want to convert things into fire damage as much as you can, so that all of the things that you spec into that are resistant against fire, and how much like uncapped, like your suppression cap for fire is very high. You can get to 90% fire resistance with that build, which makes all of your other elemental resistances really high. If you're using the chieftain build, then converting damage into elemental damage makes it not a big deal that evasion and spells and things are not handling that. You are also very resistant against damage over time, because Righteous Fire is just about constantly taking fire damage over time to run the spell itself. So your build is already resistant to damage over time. So you're able to like mitigate this damage with your resistances. So that's the general breakdown of like damage layers and how they affect you and how they get through. So yeah, and again, this is just I've only been playing as long as I've been playing, so I may not have everything right. This video took me a long time to make, because like researching like the order of where this happens and like drawing this out, and I spent a long time trying to make this an animation. But I was like, all right, let me just let me just do a whiteboard about it. And so I can get the video out, because I think this is really helpful. I think this is something that's very difficult for people to understand. So hopefully this helps break it down. So again, thank you very much. I appreciate you watching. I hope this was helpful to you. This took me a long time, even just doing this whiteboard. Like, this was a bit of work to like get right and get the numbers right and get it as close to accurate and helpful as I could. So appreciate the likes. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Again, I just hit the threshold, thanks to all of you, of being able to like get members. You know, I have a Discord where you'll get shout outs on the videos. So that's a really great way to help and support. Again, if I can make this if I can make this a source of reliable income, then we will get a lot more videos out. I can hire editors. I can focus a lot more time on this. I don't have to work 2-3 jobs. So, and I'm this close to being able to run ads. So I just need a few more watch hours to do that. So if you enjoyed the video, share it with people, watch it 400 times, send it to other people to watch. And again, thank you very much. I appreciate it. This is fun to make. I hope I'm thinking about trying to do the hardcore solo self-found gauntlet. So if any of y'all are doing that, let me know. Like, we'll run it together. And yeah, have a good day. And hey, everything's gonna be okay.